Hi Tally Scrappers, are you ready for a challenge? I've got one for you. This challenge is going to be in photography, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit and maybe even learn to take a little bit better pictures in the future. Okay, here we go. Okay, so when most people take a picture, they tend to put the main subject of their picture right in the middle of the frame, kind of like this. Now sometimes you really want your picture to have the main focus right in the middle. I mean, sometimes that's just appropriate. But sometimes if you want a little bit more visual interest in your photo, you want to do something called the rule of thirds. You want to follow the rule of thirds when you make your picture. This framing technique is so common that they actually put a rule of thirds grid on many cameras on the viewfinder or on the screen now on the new digital. You might want to look at your camera manual and see if you have one of these on your camera. My little Fujifilm Fine Pix point and shoot has one of these, and I'll show that to you. So here is a picture of the back of my little Fuji camera, and you can see that the grid lines are turned on here, and the grid lines are basically just a tic-tac-toe board. Crisscross, just like that, those 4 lines, cutting the picture into thirds, both horizontally and vertically. And the rule here is that you want your picture to not have the subject right smack in the middle, like in this picture, Grumpy on my coffee mug that I was drinking this morning is right in the middle of the frame. And granted, this can work at some pictures. It doesn't always lend to a very interesting picture. So here's my picture. So what you can do is use your grid lines to line up your coffee mug or whatever you're taking a picture of on one of these grid lines. You want it to be centered right on one of them if you can. And if you're doing something that's more horizontal, you line it up on either the top grid line or the bottom. Here we put it right on the right grid line, and eventually I want to get my main subject point, the most focal point on here, actually on the intersection of the vertical and the horizontal. That's where it's going to look the best. Here's a picture that I took from there, and granted it's not a very exciting picture, not a very exciting subject, but this tends to have a little bit more interest than if you put it right in the middle. And that is the basic foundation of the rule of thirds. Okay, if you don't have a grid built into your camera, you can make yourself a little tool, a really cheap tool to help you learn how to frame your pictures. Get some transparency sheets, probably already have them for scrapbooking, and just draw yourself a tic-tac-toe grid, and you can do them in different sizes, however you want to do it. And make sure that you circle your magic spots where the lines intersect so that you can really try and line up your focal point on your frame, on your picture, on one of those spots, and lining up your subjects either on one of those lines. So take it in front of you, line it up on your topic, on your subject, try and close one eye so that you see it in 2 dimensions like your camera, and use it like a tool. It's a great cheap tool. Learn how to frame in the rule of thirds. I'll show you. Yeah, that looks pretty good. In the middle, not so good. Okay, here's where I took some pictures of my fuzzball. Her name's Lily. She was a very willing subject. But here you can see where I was holding up my transparency grid marks in front of her, and I was trying to get her eyes in that top right corner, where the 2 lines cross, and I pretty much got that one. So there's one photo where she's off to the top right, and then here I put her down in the bottom right corner, so the grid mark would run right down here, and right across, and I tried to get her eye that's in focus mostly on that spot. And then up here she's in the top right again, but this one's horizontal. But you can see there just make really interesting photos that way, rather than like this, where she's right smack in the middle. It's still a good photo, but a little bit more interesting when you do that. Getting it? Okay, so I'm going to take you to this Tally Scrapper gallery on the computer, and maybe you'll recognize some of these photos, and I'm going to use some of them as an example for how you follow the rule of thirds. Okay, here's a gorgeous shot from Shauna. This shot is, I think, fantastic, and it completely follows the rule of thirds. If you notice, if we stick our little tic-tac-toe grid on there, you can see that the subject, this gorgeous girl's face, is right on the intersecting line of the top left corner. So, and she's completely on that, on that intersecting line too. This is from Jay Martinovici, another Tally Scrapper, who has some really awesome photos. Thinking this girl's a pro. Anyway, here's a perfect example of rule of thirds. So if we stick our little thing on there, you can see that perfectly that large palm tree lines up with the left third line, and the top part of it here intersects the two lines, and then the horizon is based on the bottom third. Another example by, is it Rowie? Another Tally Scrapper. I love this picture. And if you notice, this sweet baby is, this pouty little thing, is lined up, the center of her face is lined up right on the right line. And her eye intersects perfectly on that line that intersects the two. Cool, huh? Doesn't that just look so interesting? Okay, here's one of those cool shots from Shirley. And she took a picture of something pretty inanimate, a couple of rings, right? She could have stuck them right smack in the middle of the picture, but she didn't. She stuck them off to the side a little bit. And you can see that they are centered perfectly on the left third line. So it really just kind of gives it a little bit more interest, a little bit more interesting than if you just stuck it right in the middle. Just another way to look at pictures. Okay, here's yet another example of the rule of thirds. This is N. Noel's very awesome photo. Love the saturation here. But if you notice, again, this photo can easily be split into three main sections. There's kind of the road section, the barricade section, and then the mountain and sky. And one thing that's cool is this corner, your eye gets drawn to that corner by this leading line that the road makes, and it's, again, right smack on that spot, right in the corner, right on the intersection. So really cool. Love the shot. Another good example. Okay, so last thing, for your challenge, I want you to just keep your camera in automatic mode if that's easiest for you. Don't worry about any fancy settings right now. And pay extra attention to your framing, what you're seeing through your viewfinder or through on your camera picture on the back. And I want you to capture a couple of pictures that follow the rule of thirds really well. And I kind of want you to explain that on the gallery and post it in the challenge gallery so that we can all see what you did and we can all learn from each other. Okay? Have fun. Happy shooting.